Tom Holland has recently stated that he'd never actually want to retire from playing Spider-Man, stating that if the story was there, he'd always be happy to play the character. He also believes that he owes his entire career up until this point to the character of Spider-Man because of how much success he's now found in Hollywood because of Marvel Studios and Sony Pictures. However, this kind of creates a problem. Will Tom Holland be the final ever actor to play Peter Parker on the big screen? But before we answer that question, I want to encourage you guys to subscribe to the channel. If you love the Spider-Man community, you're for sure to love this channel. We talk about Spider-Man every single week. We're also so close to 30,000 subscribers, so I'd love if we could push for that goal this year. That'd be absolutely awesome. Now with that said, let's get straight into this. Now obviously there will be another actor that plays Peter Parker eventually on the big screen, unless the world ends in the next 100 years, but in our lifetimes there's a big possibility that given the way the MCU is going at this point in time, and Kevin Feige's clear refusal to give it a full reboot, wanting to explore new characters from Marvel Comics as well, that Tom Holland could genuinely be the final Peter Parker that we end up seeing on the big screen for a very long while. People may disagree and look at the evidence that, well, every 5 to 10 years, studios generally like rebooting characters because they make so much money. Heck, it has even happened with Spider-Man himself. We've had Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and of course Tom Holland playing Spider-Man in, what, the last 16 years or so? However, there are three main factors that play into the idea that Tom Holland could potentially be sticking it out for the long run and could actually be here playing Peter Parker for a very, very long time. Meaning that we won't get another iteration of this character for a while. The first major point is that this is a cinematic universe. Tom Holland is a part of a larger story. We touched upon this a few moments ago, but the Marvel Cinematic Universe is an ongoing story that doesn't allow for characters to be rebooted after their trilogies come to an end as to not break the canon. If this was the case, the likes of Iron Man and Captain America would have already made a return to the big screen because of how successful they were, not just critically, but financially as well. If Marvel Studios could, they very much would be bringing these characters back, and I bet the higher ups at Disney are probably trying to poach Kevin Feige to try and bring Iron Man back, to try and bring Captain America back because of the success that those characters had. Either way, the MCU doesn't really seem to be slowing down anytime soon, and with Tom Holland playing the character of Peter Parker currently, once he eventually can't physically play him anymore or the studios run out of stories to tell with him, the MCU will still carry on without him. Of course, it looks like we're going to be getting a soft reboot during Avengers Secret Wars, which could potentially see some older characters get rebooted or come back for good, but to be honest with you, Tom Holland isn't going to expire by then, and he'll probably be well into his next trilogy as the character, so the likelihood is that he's probably got a lot of time, even after Secret Wars, still playing Peter Parker. And this brings me nicely onto my next point. Tom Holland just won't stop playing him. Whether it's for the money or whether he actually believes he owes his career to this character, Tom Holland probably won't ever stop playing Spider-Man unless he's physically told not to. As I alluded to in the intro, Tom Holland has recently stated that he does owe his life to Spider-Man, saying that he'll always come back to play the character as long as the story can be pulled together that he is happy with. Now, the only way this doesn't happen is if Tom Holland isn't happy with the story, but since he's probably going to be getting some kind of executive producer role on the next trilogy, means he's probably going to be making a lot more money from the next lot of Spider-Man films. So with Tom Holland likely signed on for MCU Spider-Man 4 and probably 2 other films in a college trilogy after then, he will be playing Spider-Man well into his 30s and past Avengers Secret Wars as well. After he eventually does retire and lay the mask down one final time, there is a chance that potentially with Sony still retaining the rights of Spider-Man that they could introduce their own version of Peter Parker to the Sonyverse, because as I mentioned, due to the very nature of the MCU, he definitely won't be returning there. However, I do doubt this might be the case, and the reason for that is one man: Miles Morales. Now, my third and final point is probably my main reason as to why I don't think Peter Parker is going to get recasted or another version of Peter Parker will be appearing on the big screen anytime soon, and that is because of the prospect of a live-action Miles Morales. Now, we've got to remember, Miles Morales is a very successful legacy character to Peter Parker and one of the most popular superheroes in modern comic book media. And I think it's fair to say as well, Miles Morales probably is one of the most popular legacy characters to ever exist. He's up there with the likes of Barry Allen and Wally West, and obviously Dick Grayson as well. Like, he is up there as one of the most popular to have ever existed. We also then have to understand that the reason we already don't don't see Peter Parker show up in the Sonyverse at this point in time is because of the deal that Sony has with Marvel. When it comes to the live-action Spider-Man films centered around the Spider-Man character, that they will take place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which means Sony can't actually use Peter Parker in their films, and I believe that if it was written in the deal that Sony could use Peter Parker in their films, I think they would have done it already. But it is also clear that Sony does avoid mentioning anything that could confuse their films with the MCU films, as in Madam Web, which came out this year, some characters like May Parker were completely absent and were reduced to a mere reference, even though the film made a very big deal about making Mary Parker, Peter Parker's mother, and Uncle Ben massive characters in the film. And if they were massive characters in the film, you'd think that May Parker's name or Peter Parker's name would at least be mentioned, but no. They weren't, which suggests to me that Sony is trying to avoid using characters in their films that they use in the MCU as to not confuse the two franchises. It's almost like they're trying to keep their entities completely separate. And with this in mind, it is also to my understanding that Sony and Marvel will try to continue their deal with each other for as long as possible. As long as the films that Sony and Marvel are collaborating on are financially and critically successful, there is no reason from a business standpoint to stop doing that deal. And if the MCU Spider-Man films do continue to be successful, there is no reason why Sony would stop making their Spider-Man films connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe and make them on their own. But what does all of this have to do with Miles Morales? Well, you see, in a few years after his retirement, I would not be surprised if after Tom Holland wasn't playing the character of Peter Parker anymore, we saw Miles Morales take the reins in the MCU as the new Spider-Man, which could potentially mean, once again, no Peter Parker in live action for a very long time, as the franchise of the MCU would try and preserve canon and the legacy of Tom Holland's Peter Parker. Now, there's a chance that Sony could just make separate movies with Peter Parker after he isn't in the MCU, but like we mentioned before, if the deal continues to be the same, this wouldn't be possible because, as we know, Sony has a deal with Disney to make their solo Spider-Man movies a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, yes, we know at the backlog of projects at Sony Pictures, a Miles Morales solo movie is already currently in development, confirmed by Amy Pascal herself. But the film at this moment in time doesn't even have a writer attached to it, and it isn't even in early pre-production. In fact, Sony are only going to be focusing on this movie after the fourth Spider-Man film and Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, which both won't be coming out for at least another few years. So we have no idea what this film will be about and who will be involved in making it. Marvel Studios could almost certainly have a hand in making this film, we just don't know yet. Either way, it's going to be at least 5, if not 10 years before this film even comes out. And even so, would solo Peter Parker movies from Sony after Tom Holland's reign in the MCU is done even be successful? And would the fans even want that? Tom Holland would have become so ingrained as Spider-Man 20 years down the line after playing the character for so long that it would genuinely be comparable to the MCU trying to recast RDJ as Tony Stark and starting from scratch again. It might not even be something the fans would like to see. Maybe 20 years down the line, fans would be campaigning not to recast Peter Parker as to not tarnish the legacy of Tom Holland's version of the character. At this moment in time, I know a lot of people that would actually like Tom Holland to be recast, but 20 years down the line, you just don't know. But yeah, those are the 3 reasons that I believe, the way we're looking at it right now, Tom Holland's Peter Parker could be the last Peter Parker that we see in live action for a very long time. And if you do want to see what the current plans for MCU Spider-Man 4 look like at the moment, you can check out my video right here, which goes into depth with everything that we know so far and all the leaks and all the recent rumors. Shout out to the members, you guys are awesome. And with that said, subscribe to the channel, join the community, let's push for 30,000 subscribers, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care and peace.